Hello, good evening, and thanks again for another edition of Ideas Exchange. Last week, we couldn't meet, but we brought you a conversation we had with the Speaker of Parliament. He visited our facility and he spoke at length on issues bordering what we do as journalists and, of course, his views on what we can do to improve on our governance. And he made one strong statement about the need to empower the media to be the gatekeepers. And most especially, the gatekeeping role is to expose the rot and to commend those who are doing well so that collectively we can help build this country. Tonight, our focus is on what is gradually becoming a pain in the ass of many people who aspire to be graduates. I'm referring to students of the numerous tertiary institutions we have in Ghana. Accommodation has become a crisis. Accommodation is almost becoming a tool for those who can afford to have or gain access to our public universities. And the scenario is very simple. You go to primary or JHS, your parents will pay, and now under the free SHS policy, you have 3 years of nothing, paying just nothing to many of the secondary schools that government is controlling. And just after you finish, you have to enter our public universities. And what we have observed is that lately, it appears as if those who are into hostel projects or landlords or people who are into those kinds of businesses are simply exploiting the situation. In the 50s, 60s, 70s, I remember many of our grandfathers, our grandmothers, perhaps your father, or maybe anybody who may be in the 70s or late 60s who's listening to this program will attest to the fact that accommodation was virtually free. We understand that even those days when students vacated, some of them preferred to stay on campus because the campus environment was so conducive that they preferred to stay there than go to their villages. But gradually, as we walked into the 80s, many of these freebies, the comfort many students would need on campuses, almost got missing. I remember in the late 90s into the early 2000s, when I was doing my first degree, it was almost very difficult to get a seat at the lecture theaters if you went there late. So that was the beginning of the crisis we are facing today. It was around those periods that many people who had facilities around public universities decided to convert them into hostels. So they were competing with ordinary workers, ordinary Ghanaians who were living in such communities. For example, if you go to the University of Cape Coast, communities around Kwapro, Amamoma, up to Pedu, Abra, you go as far as Yamransa, even Elmina. Students had to live that far to be able to gain access. But what is actually provoking this conversation, which is critical, because if we don't speak to it now, it may come back to haunt us, because you go to school for free at the SHS level, and because today it is an in, out, out, in policy, it means every student, at least, would have to taste hostel environment. But not all is so good. Some are basically wooden structures that students have to just live in. There are other students who have turned classrooms into their places of abode. So they wait till any lecture hall is free. Then they go and lie on the benches or on the floor. And then when day breaks, they sneak out to the halls and have their bath. Why should we reduce people who become our future leaders to this? And if we begin to groom them under such conditions, do you think they'll be patriotic enough to think Ghana? Well, these are part of the questions we'll be discussing today. But what has provoked this again is this I want to share on the screen. It is only a reflection of how much money many of the students are paying outside. And so what you see on the screen talks about rent charges that students have to pay. And this has gone viral. For example, if you check there, the first one on the list, in a room with AC, a new penthouse, just one bed, students who can afford would have to pay 24,000 cedis for each academic year. If you go down, you see the figures reducing to one in a room with AC. All these are one bed. Then you go down there, you see 4 in a room shared. Each person is paying 4,928 cedis. Now, how many parents can afford this? Even how many Ghanaian workers can afford 4 people in a room, and each person would have to pay. And it's even worse for international students. So you see 35,320. Now, this is what has been going on. And you will be asking a lot of questions, because when you look at these figures, these astronomical figures, there are so many questions you want to ask. And I have a little video that I just picked on the internet, and this video was just advertising hostel facilities. I don't know whether the person who took the video was hiding before he took it, but it is instructive for those of you who are watching this program to appreciate the video. So the producers will share it on the screen so that you have an idea. These are the structures which have been springing up around our public universities and other tertiary institutions. And the rooms are very small, and then the spaces are virtually non-existent. And every student would have to squeeze him or herself in these facilities. And some today, as you saw 12 on the screen, are going for as high as 24,000 cedis per semester. And so, before I introduce my guests for tonight's program, who are all student representative councils from the University of Ghana, we have the Kwame Nkrumah University of Science and Technology, we have the University of Cape Coast, and of course, we'll be speaking to the Rent Control Board. And this conversation would also include an affordable housing developer or builder. He has made some incursions to some of our public universities, and he will be sharing with us his experiences, how cheap it may be to look at other facilities we can use to provide accommodation facilities for our students. Why has it brought us this far? And so I have a few questions I want to share with you on the screen before I introduce some of my guests who will be joining me via Zoom, and some will be in the studio. And so the questions I am asking are very simple. I want you to think about these questions while we begin this conversation. One is saying, who is really benefiting from this? Who? The question is, who is really benefiting from this? Does government really care about the impact on students, the threat to access today? Could this be a deliberate policy driven by cartels within the university administrative structure, real estate developers, private individuals with links who are exploiting students? How about Rent Control Authority? Are they comfortable about these killer rents? I remember they said you can't charge more than 6 months into a year as rent advance. Why are these facilities charging for a whole academic year, and these figures are astronomical? If universities have access and are guaranteed of intake every academic year, and the students can afford private facilities available, why can't same universities invest religiously into hostels, halls, charge students, and profit directly? Because remember, many of these university campuses have vast land just following for future projects. So over the years, are we saying that these universities who are training people to be negotiators, to be lawyers, to be contract drafters and so on, cannot sit with banks and go into such projects? Well, I've seen something Legon has started yesterday. I went to their website before I came here, and I'm seeing something interesting I will share when the conversation continues. What sense does it make to attend SHS for free but can't afford to pay for tertiary education, not only because of academic user fee, but accommodation charges? Do authorities or government care about where students are forced to stay, the distance from campuses, safety, environment, and impact on learning? And does anyone care about the welfare of students, young females who are going to be enticed by people like me and you, the bad men who are taking advantage of these vulnerable young women who are forced to stay in just any facility, and they entice them to move them to something that is better? Does anybody care? And the last one is, does anyone also care about the young men who may not be able to get somebody who extend freebies to them, but maybe hustlers on campus, sleeping on tables, on chairs, or sleeping in empty lecture halls only to go to their colleagues and wash and go back? How are they going to concentrate? Well, this is Ideas Exchange. My guests tonight, as I told you, One will be speaking to us via Zoom is Christopher Tufo Amwako, the SRC Speaker of Parliament at the Kwame Nkrumah University of Science and Technology. Latif Lawrence Johowi is a student representative, that the SRC President of the University of Cape Coast, will also be joining us via Zoom. And of course, Christopher Tufo Amwako, as I told you, is the SRC Speaker of Parliament. And then one person will be joining us in the studio here. He is a student of the University of Ghana, and he is, I'm just missing his name, he will be, he's called Latif. Latif will be, is it Hamza? It's called, yes, Hamza will be in the studio. I will tell you more about Hamza shortly. But let me begin to engage my guests. One of them, I'm told, has joined me via Zoom. Yeah, Christopher and Samuel have joined me via Zoom. So let's begin the conversation. First of all, Christopher and Samuel, I'm so grateful for this time. It's a very sensitive topic, and I believe that students have been discussing this all day. First of all, Christopher, how is everything doing well for your colleagues at the Kwame Nkrumah University of Science and Technology?
Thank you very much, sir. My special greetings to everyone watching the show, and then greetings to my co-panelists as well. Over here in the Kwame Nkrumah University of Science and Technology, I can say on behalf of everyone that we are doing great here by the special grace of God. And I am glad that I am being hosted on this program or this show to represent the interest of the students here.
Let me also welcome Christopher Tufo, Latif Lawrence Johowi, SRC President of the University of Cape Coast. Welcome, sir. Yes, can you hear me, sir? I'm a bit confused. I'm told it's rather Samuel on the line. Samuel, first of all, good evening again, and you are welcome to Ideas Exchange.
Thank you, Eric.
Right, Samuel, so you'll be walking us through your experiences, but let me first engage the students and have a better appreciation of what they have been going through on campus. With me in the studio is a student from the University of Ghana. Hamza, you are welcome.
Thank you.
I'm told you are an aspiring SRC executive.
Yeah, by the positive grace of God, I have owned myself up to contest in this year's SRC presidential elections.
Right.
And I hope my message will prick the conscience of every Tom, Dick, and Harry in the university, so that together with me, we can take a voyage to the land of uncommon transformation.
Right. So let me first of all engage, how do you call it, Christopher. Christopher, help us appreciate the situation at the Kwame Nkrumah University of Science and Technology. How far some of these students have to come from to attend lectures, especially if the facilities around the campus are quite expensive?
Kindly come again, please.
My question is, help us appreciate the challenge you face around the campus, especially hostel facilities, the cost, and sometimes how far these students have to come from if what they can afford appears to be far from the campus itself.
Okay, thank you very much. So the accommodation issue in KNUST has been a generational problem. I have been in KNUST for the past 6 years. I'm now in my CTA. I'm reading Doctor of Veterinary Medicine, and then I can testify that over the past few years, in recent years, KNUST has been having accommodation issues. Currently, there are limited accommodation or limited hostels or halls of residence on campus, and the situation has forced majority of the students, by majority I mean approximately around 70% of our students, to stay off campus, and now it is even forcing the university to channel some other resources, monetary-wise, into security and transportation of the various students who are off campus, to make sure that they are being taken care of when it comes to their accommodation and then their transportation and then their security. Now, fortunately, in KNUST, even though we have several students who live outside the university campus, but then they are not so far, and then preparations has been put in place to make sure that there are security patrols during the night. I mean, just to ensure that these students are safe as much as we cannot contain all students off campus. However, there has been some engagements of preparation to make sure that these problems are being put to an end. And I think as the conversations goes, I will delve deeper into that.
Okay, so let me take this as your opening remark. Samuel, I'll come to you. So just stay with us because you are going to give us some recommendations that may be taken care of by those who can afford as solutions. Now, help us. We saw something that went viral, and this came from one of the hostel facilities we have at the campus. The conversation is not about this hostel facility. The conversation is about the general picture you face. You have two campuses, sure. The Accra City campus and the main campus. All these have hostel facilities. How bad or challenging can it be for students? Help us appreciate the conditions under which you have to survive.
Okay, thank you very much once again. And a very good evening to our cherished listeners, near and afar. It is indeed, it has become an albatross on the neck of students when it comes to accommodation issues. It is a perennial problem that we have been facing since we came to this school. And one of the things that I thought the management should place enormous emphasis on is where students will sleep so that we can get a very serene environment to learn. Because if you don't have a serene environment, the learning atmosphere becomes very tense. And you yourself, you can attest to the huge amount of money being charged at these private hostels. I don't know whether it's because, I don't know whether the university is being run by capitalists right now. For that one, I don't know. But when the fees came out, it's having broke loose because where we find ourselves right now as a country, we are in a economic mess. And our parents are not spared by these economic issues that we are facing. And it is our parents who are going to pay this amount. So I believe in as much as they are at liberty to increase their fees, they should also take into consideration the current economic issues that we face as a country and how it has transcended into the pocket of our parents, which is directly they are the ones paying our school fees. So to me, I never welcome that charges that came from them. But there's nothing we can do because they are private hostel, and private hostel, they are at liberty, and it behoves on them to do whatever that they think is right. But as an consummate student activist and advocate, I will preach on any platform that I get. I will preach against it, and I use this opportunity to call on all the major stakeholders when it comes to education in this country, especially tertiary, to take this thing up and not just sweep the debris under the carpet. Because if I have so many friends whom, because of these accommodation issues, they have been forced to truncate their education.
That's quite serious.
Very serious. And I have a friend who almost committed suicide because he or she couldn't get money to pay his or her accommodation fees, even after going through all the hassle and bustle and to get little to pay for the academic fees. Another problem is the accommodation fees. So it becomes two sides of the same coin. It's either you forfeit your accommodation for your academic, or you forfeit your accommodation for your accommodation.
That's quite interesting because there are other people who are joining this conversation. So, Hamza, I'll come to you. Your story is quite interesting. Now, let me bring Sami in briefly because he can't hang on to be enjoying our conversation because we are whetting his appetite. Sami, if you are with us via Zoom, Sami, your opening remark on this challenge, even before we talk to you about what you have attempted to do with some of the tertiary institutions, and if they are opening up. Yes, I mean, did you hear my question, Sami? Yes, go ahead. I'm listening.
Please, can you? Okay, so good evening to your viewers and your listenership. In fact, I'm just broken because of the comments that are coming from your panel and the studio and the other crew member who is also on Zoom. Some of us saw this coming way back 2014, 2015. And it's heartbroken that look, in humanity, right? No matter who you are, after the hard day's work, after the hustle and bustle, the only thing that
Your line is breaking, and so I would have to come back to you
keep having a
again.
place to live, right?
Okay, so because Samis is having some feedback at the other end, I would advise that, Sami, if you can hear me from where you are, you reduce the volume of any set around you and then adjust your camera. Let me go to Christopher in Kumasi. Christopher, one thing that comes up whenever students have to address this challenge has to do with access to electricity, toilet facilities, the environment in which they live, even the proximity to campuses. Now, if you can hear me, Christopher, let me repeat the question because there was some noise at the background. I am making reference to the amenities that may be available in some of these hostel facilities. How bad can they be? Because we know some of the students turn up using facilities on campus just because they can't use what is afforded them at some of these almost weak structures they have to live in as accommodation facilities.
Sir, please, I'm very sorry. Can you come again with the question?
The question is simple. I'm talking about amenities that are available for students who rent hostel facilities apart from, or rather than, well-structured ones that, like the ones we showed. You know, people have their homes turned into hostel facilities. And so you find somebody's 3-bedroom house which will be turned into a hostel facility for about 15, 20 students, 4 in a room, and they have to share 1 toilet, 1 bathroom, and so on. We have seen many of these. Help us appreciate it from what you have witnessed as a student leader at the Kwame Nkrumah University of Science and Technology.
Okay, thank you very much. So the hostel accommodation business in KNUST or around KNUST is now a very competitive one, and as such, it has made the business a lucrative one. I can boldly testify that almost all the hostels here, they make sure that at least they have their washrooms inside, and even those who do not have kitchens, they replace the kitchens with balcony so that the students can compromise on using the balconies as kitchens. And even the people who turn their homes into hostels, they make sure that they provide all these facilities, because once you do not provide them, it means you cannot beat the market, and then people will not be coming in for your accommodation, your hostels or your homestels.
Kumasi, it's quite competitive, which is helping these facility providers to enhance what they provide for the students. But let's look at University of Ghana, for example. You would notice that when you go to the Accra City campus, I've visited many of those story buildings which have been turned into hostels, and the situation there is quite bad.
I saw. Yeah. Once again, thank you very much, and a very good evening to our cherished listeners once again. Like you just espoused, it is palpably true what you are saying. When you go, the condition that you find these buildings in are not suitable, are not something good to write home about. But because somebody is benefiting from it, he or she does not care whatever happens to those who are using it. But as students, I believe we are a major stakeholder when it comes to education, and our needs should be prioritized. It shouldn't just be relegated to the background, because after paying, whether you like it or not, you can use it. If you don't like, you can go anywhere that you want. Where I am, I was previously in Commonwealth Hall, and in Commonwealth Hall, because it's a traditional hall, the payment policy really helped the vulnerable student coming from far and near. You could pay like 750 or 800 per semester. That means the whole academic year, you can pay like 1,500. But here is the case that I was moved from Commonwealth Hall to one of the diaspora halls, which I'm supposed to pay 1,921 for 1 academic semester. If you should just oppose the 2 academic,
it's almost 4,000.
It's almost 4,000. My mom is just a mere watch seller. And we were here when the gallon of oil price rise to about 1,500 for the first time in our country. So definitely to be having a rigorous effect.
But you take allowances, or you have access to student loans?
Student loans, that one, I don't even want to go there. It's been fraught with partisan inclinations. If you are not affiliated with the current government that we are in, or the sitting government, it will be very hard for you to get the scholarship. Unless you have a friend who is also in that establishment, it will become a big issue accessing that scholarship. But back to my substantive case, I was talking about the facilities that we use. Now, the facilities that I were using way back in the traditional hall, somehow I stand to be corrected, but not to defame the hall that I am in now. It's far, far better than the one that we are even paying more. But I thought as students, the more we pay, the more we tend to enjoy the facility. But it is not turning out to be like that. And also because of that, it rendered a lot of students homeless. They don't have when it comes to University of Ghana right now, you have a lot of students sleeping in the libraries. Meanwhile, when you go to Commonwealth Hall, they have locked rooms there. So locked rooms. So I want to ask myself, we students of University of Ghana, we are a major stakeholder when it comes to education. We are begging the powers that may be, or the upper echelon. You people should stop trying to intimidate anyone who wants to come out and talk against the excesses of any management act. Here's the case that when we were sacked from the hall, a lot of people did not get placed because some of their parents couldn't afford the 1,921. So they were being compelled to either take shelter outside. I
even have some videos of the demonstration we had in front of the
hall.
Common Hall. I'm sure they'll be playing.
It was a harmless demonstration, but you could see how they exerted brutalities on us. We the future leaders of this country. So the question that sometimes I shudder to ask is that this current management that we have, during their time, they were enjoying benefits far, far, far better than us. You were even enjoying one chicken a day. You were going to dining, you were getting scholarships, stipends. But during our time, we are not enjoying.
But demand has brought us this far. Let me go to Samuel because we made an attempt to speak to him. He is Samuel. Is somebody who is into affordable housing. He's also, I'm struggling to locate his name so that I can give his title appropriately as it should be. Samuel, if you're on the line, good evening again, and if your line is better, we can engage you in a conversation now. Samuel Agbanyaga, can you hear me? It looks like Samuel is far away in Takrady, I'm told, and so he's having difficulty. I'll come to you shortly, Christopher. But the understanding I have, and the same question will go to Christopher, is that the leadership of the SRC has some relationship with these hostel facility owners, and the dean of students also comes in, because I witnessed this when I was a student. And so that collaborative effort is helping to negotiate what is appropriate or is relatively understandable for students to pay. Is that breaking down, or is not existing now?
Not at all. Let me avail your mind to something. This is the first time that I am breaking it on any station in Ghana. Do you know that the SRC has a SRC Hostel Development Fund that since 2021, every student who gets admission to University of Ghana pays 100 cedis. For the SRC to be able to erect a hostel in its name, so that it will help mitigate some of this accommodation deficit that we are facing. But you know that University of Ghana is celebrating their 75th anniversary. And here is the case that the SRC president, who is supposed to be a consummate advocate for student welfare, they have rather sit down and they have taken 10 billion OCDs of our money to management to go and celebrate the 75th anniversary. As an SRC president, the welfare of students should be your #1 priority. So I'm asking this question here, that 10 billion that they have given to management, couldn't they have gone into a negotiation with any bank in this country to build BOT, build, operate, and transfer?
Okay, hold it. I'm told Latif, the SRC president of the University of Cape Coast, has also joined us. We are making an attempt to connect again with Samuel, who is an affordable housing developer. Now, Latif, good evening, and we are happy you have joined us.
Yeah, hello, and good evening. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. You are very clear here in the studio. Now, Latif, help us appreciate the situation at the University of Cape Coast.
Thank you, Eric, and good evening to all viewers. Good evening, Ghana. At the University of Cape Coast at West Africa's #1, the situation is not too different from the other universities, except to say that there are genuine issues that we all have to tackle. I think that we would have to tackle the issue of hostel and accommodation, dispassionate of emotions. And I have always maintained that when it comes to the issue of high rent, it's simple equal 101, the issue of demand and supply. We may not be able to make arguments about what happened 30, 40 years ago, because the numbers as at then are not the same as the numbers as at now. And I have always maintained that until we get to the point where public universities are able to have more than enough bed spaces for their students, we will continuously have the issue of prices hikes. Because when you come to the University of Cape Coast, even though when you comparatively with that of Ken USA and Legon, the prices at the University of Cape Coast are a bit down, but we still maintain that the prices here are equally high. Reason being that you, for year on year, you would have a hostel that you were staying in, no paintings were done, no repairs, no new fans, nothing. And you tell your landlord that you want to renew your rent for the next academic year. The landlord looks into your face and tells you that, look, you're gonna pay 1,000 more cedis on the same room, that nothing has been done in terms of aesthetics. But why is the private person able to do this to students of University of Cape Coast, knowing very well that you would still pay, as that they know you have no option. There is no option B, because the university accommodations for students can only accommodate first years. So those in level 200, level 300, level 400 have their fate and how much they pay in terms of accommodation determined by the private man whose major interest is profit driven. And you see, we cannot hold the private businessman say that you are overcharging, because he will literally tell you that, look, hey man, I am not forcing you to come and stay in my hostel. If you cannot pay, pack out. But he knows you can't pack out, because when you pack out to the next hostel, it is the same price. And if you are not even careful, you will not even get a place to sleep. On the flip side,
what I want to do at this stage, if my producers can help me, Latif, you are making a very good point, but Christopher has been silent for a while. There's supposed to be a conversation among all of us in the studio and those of you via Zoom. So with due respect, let me go to Christopher. Christopher, how would you react when some say that the leadership of the student front, from SRC to NUCS, you have failed to engage government constructively to put pressure on government either today or yesterday to give you what you need? Because these universities have lands, all these universities have enough space for you students. Leadership of NUCS or SRC at that time were able to push for policies that are helping students, for example, get fund. And over the last 10, 15, 20 years, we have not seen much. How do you react, Christopher, on behalf of your colleagues?
Okay, thank you very much. So I overheard my colleague from University of Ghana expressing his, how unhappy he is with the system in the University of Ghana. However, in Ken University, we are very fortunate to have a very well collaborating and listening management. In Ken University now, we have the Earth House hostel, which accommodates over 800 students. And at the moment, we are planning to extend that hostel, which at the end, we look to have over 100,000 beds in the hostel. Also, through the office of the Dean of Director of Students Affairs, another the State Dean of Students, over here we use the Director of Students Affairs. We have what is called the COSA Hub. The full name is the Care University Off-Campus Students Accommodation Support. This app helps students to book and also search private hostels on campus as well. This gives the director and the management and the student leadership the opportunity to engage these private hostel managers about how they should price their hostels, the facilities they should have, and how they should go about their hostel business. So in Care University here, we have been able to build several conversations to end, and a lot of them have been very successful. Now, this year, we are expecting that we will not be seeing the huge hiked prices. Also, the university management, once again through the Office of Director of Student Affairs, has been engaging some private hostel managers for the construction of some hostels on campus. And once again, Care University this year, God willing, come 26th October, we'll be having the Care University Day of Giving, and our target will be 200,000 Ghana cedis, 200 million Ghana cedis.
Okay.
And this amount will be used for the construction of the 2,000 bed hostel capacity on campus in order to ease the burden of accommodation on campus in Care University here.
Okay, so that's from Christopher. Now, let me come back to you in the studio. Of course, Latif, stay with me. I'll come back to you shortly to let us appreciate how differently you are doing things on campus. I remember about 2 years ago, if my memory serves me right, the LSAC leadership at the time, when you had crisis, suggested that you were embarking on an initiative on your own to provide a facility at the University of Ghana. Today, before we started the show, I went to your website, and I'm sure the producers will share the pictures. I saw your vice chancellor who cut the sword, and I don't know whether it is a today's event or yesterday's event, for a facility that I'm told is going to build a hostel that can occupy about 4,000 students or so. And this is the picture of the hostel facility that I saw on your website, and it is talking about a facility that is able to solve many of the problems you have on campus. Now, when I was going through these issues on your website, I had an appreciation that maybe there is an attempt to provide this for you. However, it would look as if the private hostel facility owners may have a much more influence on maybe government or authorities or maybe leadership. And so because of that, the conversation towards the school or the university having its own facility is not vibrant as it should be.
Yes, that's true. And I will feel no qualms in saying that this picture that you are showing on your screen, yeah, it is a remnant of what I think they are about doing or building. But here is the case that the question here is that after building these facilities, are students able to what? Are they able to apply for them, or do they have enough money or funds to apply for them? That's the issue. We are not talking about re-erecting the structure. You can erect the structure, all right, but if you erect the structure and the people who are concerned are unable to purchase, are unable to afford it, then it becomes a white elephant. And what we are saying here is that the S-House, like my brother from Kenya University just espoused, he has been able to mention some of the legacies of the Kenya University S-House. That is what we want to see from our S-House, University of Ghana. As the premier university, we are supposed to lead for the others to follow. But here's the case that when you come to University of Ghana right now, there's no remnant of any S-House project that you can pinpoint to.
Okay, so just hold it. We are taking a short break. When we come back, I will continue this conversation.
Welcome to the Royal Dazzle Event Center. With a lush and well-maintained lawn and garden, you are assured of the best serene and comfortable atmosphere to organize all your family and social events. Live the royal moments here with friends and family. The hosting capacity of 600 to 800 people makes Royal Dazzle the most versatile of places to host weddings, parties, funerals, conferences, concerts, and many more. Create your memories with us. Call us for inquiries on 055-814-8585 or 024-620-2144, or pass by and speak to any of our friendly staff. Locate us at Maijon, close to Zoom Lion headquarters. Royal Dazzle Event Center, creating memories. The average human body mass should have at least 60% water for optimal performance in any physical or mental exercise. We can help you maintain it naturally. X Natural Mineral Water. Simply natural.
Welcome back. This is Ideas Exchange on TV XYZ. Our conversation is on hostel crisis, exploitation, threat to access, and we are going to look at alternative solutions. The Kwame Nkrumah University of Science and Technology is talking about some solutions. I know the University of Ghana would also be doing same. In fact, the truth is, we made several efforts to get the leadership of the SRC at the Ghana, that's the University of Ghana, to speak to us. They agreed to speak to us, and the whole of today from 7 a.m. we have been engaging a lady and many of them, and it appears as if they are just not willing for this conversation. And I believe that if you are a student, you should not be too happy that people who are leading you are not willing to speak to issues of interest, because this conversation is not really targeting anybody. The conversation is looking at a reality. And the reason why I'm raising this is that it is not limited to Ghana. I have a short video. It's about 2 minutes I want to play. It's about the state of California in the US. And just listen to what students are saying about accommodation crisis and exploitation by hostel facility owners.
I feel like most students go into this process blind and not knowing how bad and how difficult it is to find a roof over your head in Berkeley.
Oh, the Hilligash one. You applied to that one, right?
I think a lot of landlords and companies looking to give students housing and apartments, they know that we are all in desperate need of housing, so they know that whatever price they charge, we'll inevitably have to pay it because we don't really have a choice except, you know, maybe to live out of our cars.
Oh, colleges.
So college students are uniquely impacted by really a nationwide shortage of housing because in many of these college towns, the universities or the market where these universities are haven't created enough housing to really support growing student body. So in many cases, particularly here in California, you have students who have to commute very long distances in order to attend classes or end up actually being homeless, which could be anything from crashing on couches, staying with people during the week, during classes, or sleeping in their cars.
LOMARES. I definitely was not prepared to be this stressed about housing every year and about like rent. I don't think the university warns students about how difficult it is to find housing. It definitely was not the case for me. I've taken classes in the summer so that I can get summer financial aid so that I can pay for housing.
I think there's so much income inequality in the Bay Area.
So I shared the United States of America. Some of the students can afford to sleep in tents on campus. Legon, if you sleep in a tent on campus, the next day your laptop will be gone. I don't think it will be too different from NUST or University of Cape Coast, or the rain will beat you. Again, the facilities they say are quite expensive are much more comfortable. But even then, they are crying. So the crisis is not limited to Ghana. Now, I know Christopher is on the line. I know Latif is also joining us via Zoom. Christopher, I'll come to you shortly. Now, how are students managing to cope? Lectures closing late as 9 p.m. How bad could it be for those who live far or are managing some of these things? Access to lecture halls, early morning lectures, 6 a.m., 7 a.m. Some of your lecturers are businessmen or working in facilities, maybe bank or some of the ministries, and come to help you. So they fix lectures at any time. Help us understand before we go to Christopher, briefly.
Briefly, I'll be very succinct, like you just said. Some of the problems that we face due to these accommodation issues on campus is that first, the insecurity. Like you just espoused, someone will have lectures around 7, and you know the traffic situation that we have in this our country. If the person is living, maybe staying at maybe Adenta, those enclaves, and the person is supposed to go home back at around 10 or 11 p.m. Just recently, a girl was attacked and he was almost butchered to death, and one of the lecturers too was attacked during daylight. So some of these things rather not inure to the benefit of the students, but it is rather a very bad prognostication for students on campus, be it because of this, some of them will be sleeping on uncanny places where they are not supposed to sleep. Because even in the Bible, there is a saying that cleanliness is next to godliness. And for you to be intellectually sound, you have to be close to the Lord. And here's the case that you find yourself waking up from bathrooms and you are going to lecture hall. You wouldn't even have that aura to go and sit in class to learn. So I think there are plethora of problems that we are facing as students, but for the sake of time, like I said, I'll be very succinct. But if I'm given another opportunity, I'll
definitely come back to you. And for some of you who have just joined us, some of those videos you are watching are some of the campuses I put together: University of Cape Coast, Kwame Nkrumah University of Science and Technology, and of course, Legon has its own identity. So when the videos come across, you will see. And so you'd notice that the universities have land available. And this conversation may center on the 3 major public universities, but it extends to the technical universities. It extends to even the training colleges, I'm told. Now, Christopher, I don't know if Latif is also on the line, but first, Christopher, we don't have much time. What do you think should be the best solution to addressing this, even though NUST may have a unique case?
Okay, thank you very much. So the first thing I would say is that, one, the university should focus on channeling their resources into providing more accommodation facilities. We know about this IGF, internally generated fund. I understand the university's priority would be academic facilities, and in Ken West, I mean, I would commend the management on that. We have all the academic facilities that we need, and now maybe it is time that they will channel their energy and focus in providing more accommodation facilities. Also, I think it is time that the government intervenes. We cannot put all the burden on the university management. The government should also help, since these are government universities. These are public universities. The government also has a responsibility in coming to help the situation. However, in Ken University, you asked a question initially. In Ken University, as an SLC, and then sometimes we collaborate with the university management, we seek to address some of these upfront problems. For example, you asked some students, there are some students who close lectures as late as 10, sometimes some as late as 9 p.m. What are the provisions made? In Ken University, as an SLC, we have collaborated with the management, and then whenever a class closes that late, there are Ken University shuttles which takes them from the various campus bus joints to some joints off campus, and usually these shuttles are accompanied with security personnel. So that is how far we have gone in Ken University.
Christopher, I would suggest that you hold it. I'll come to you before we end this program. But I know that Latif is also on the line and Samuel has come. And so let me go to Samuel first because we've made several attempts to engage him. Samuel, can you hear me?
Yeah, Eric, I can hear you.
Very good.
I have challenges with my internet
yeah,
because of where I am.
Okay. Okay, the connection is better.
Can you hear me?
Yes, the connection is better. I'll quickly introduce some facilities you shared with me because you told me you made an attempt to engage some tertiary institutions on these affordable hostel facilities that can be considered. You walk us through how cheap it could be and whether even students who are raising their own funds could be engaging you to look at some of the things we are sharing on the screen. So help us appreciate what you have done so far.
Okay, Eric. So we wanted to do this particular structure for Takoradi Polytechnic. That was way back 2014, 2015. So the institution gave us the access. We went to the site, did the inspection, then brought this 3D design. That is how the structure will be, the rooms and all that. So it was so cheap that this whole structure you see as at then could cost just a little under $3 million. And although we are getting an international funding, the financier was dealing through us with social investment fund, which is directly under government. So you realize that we're going to pay the money within 15 to 20 years. And this was cheap because that one, government has control over it. So you can't just get up over 12 months and say you are increasing the rent. It's not allowed. And it was so cheap to the extent that we're just optimistic that we could do this across the various institutions in Ghana. But then, unfortunately, there was a change of government and then all these things were thrown under the carpet. But going forward, it's still standing. We're still looking for financiers to come and do this for the institutions in Ghana, especially using the technology that I am an expert in, which is called hydroform technology. It's cheaper, it's affordable, and it's way better to build with using the regular concrete. So if these people are complaining today that they're having issues with private individuals doing increasing rent every now and then, I understand because look, a private individual will just wake up, listen to the stomach or the demands or the personal pressure that is coming from him to increase rent. But doing something with the government, which is an international financier controlled, cannot just get up and increase rent. So I believe that look, it's not too late. We can still work together with government and then get an international financier to do these DOT structures for the various institutions across Ghana. For our students who are studying to become responsible for the development of this country, to have a decent place to rest their head after the hard day's work. Because Eric, one thing that can amputate your soul is to work hard and then wouldn't know where to lay your head after the struggle. So we are in to support any institution that thinks that they have their own land, they can approach us. We'll see how best we can talk to an international funder and then help them to get these structures raised at a very good price, cheaper, that can fit the Ghanaian, we call the how do you call it, the normal Ghanaian or maybe the cheapest Ghanaian to be able to afford a hostel facility even as they go through the technical institution.
Let's pause there. Let me engage Latif and Christopher and sign them off. And then I'll wrap up with you and Hamza in the studio. Now, Latif, if you can hear me, at what stage does Rent Control Authority come in if it has to do with paying maybe the hostel facility fee for 2 semesters? That would be beyond 6 months. And if anything at all, they have ever come in to sympathize with you on these exorbitant charges they slap on your students?
Eric, thank you. I think that
The line seems to be breaking.
Control has a major role to play in terms of regulating these things. And I know that when it comes able to meet certain basic limits before you can charge certain amount of money. It's not just any structure and any facilities that are found in the structure that you can just see an X amount of money should be charged corresponding. And I think that regular checks by the rent control would be able to put checks on some of these. When you come to University of Cape Coast, hardly would you find rent control doing some of these checks to ensure that the basic things are even being complied with. And so I think rent control has a huge role to play in ensuring that the basics are complied with. But if we leave our accommodation destiny into the hands of the private developer, then we will continuously be exploited. They are not a social intervention group. Government, the SRCs, like we have put up the SRC hall that is accommodating about 2,000 students. Universities should make conscious effort to put up accommodation structures more than the admit students if we want to solve the accommodation problem.
Now, I'm sure you listened to Samuel Agbenyega, hydroform technology expert, CEO, Point of Light Construction Limited. Would UCC, just like NUST or maybe University of Ghana, he's not a student leader yet, but he's aspiring to become one. Would you want to engage some of these institutions and partner them to help you put up cheaper facilities for your students?
Yeah. Partner.
So I'm sure Christopher is engaging somebody around Kumasi Bantama, so I can appreciate him. Christopher, I'm sure you are finished. If you are back. Okay, Christopher is back on the line. Let me go to Samuel. Samuel, now, I know members of parliament, corporate organizations sometimes take up some of these initiatives to help campuses. Maybe if you go to the Ghana Gas project, for example, they may want to help Takrady Technical University or come as far as Accra or Kwame Nkrumah University of Science and Technology. How responsive are members of parliament, for example, corporate organizations, or even to a larger extent, businesses which may want to partner you so that you can build and offer them to students at a cheaper price compared to what is around campuses which are exploitative? Yes, you can go ahead, Samuel. I'm listening. Well, it looks like we are having some challenge. If you can, let's engage Samuel by phone. Just 2 minutes to answer this critical question. But let me come to you. Now, several solutions will be in the books. For you as a student, what do you think your colleagues can do differently, collectively, to help your own selves on campus?
Okay, thank you once again for this opportunity. And my sincere advice to my colleagues who are running helming the affairs of students is that our brother just espoused a very human idea of building or even engaging international banks or institutions to come and help us. I think it is high time we extend our tentacle. Make sure we involve the government, because students are coming out to serve the country, and indirectly most of them will be going into politics and end up going to parliament to enact rules for this country that we live in. So I think it is high time we think outside the box and not to always play to the gallery. We should be more innovative as we go for it as student leaders, propose solutions that were near to the benefit of students and not just a few. So I think my brother from that Hydra...
Yes, it's called Samuel Kofi Agbenyega. They are trying to reach him via phone so that you can hear him properly.
If I'll be a little bit...
Okay, I'm told Samuel is back. Samuel, the question was, what has been the outreach by your company to members of parliament, to corporate organizations selling this technology which is cheaper, and whether they are ready to embrace you to support our students? It may be any small university outside Accra, Kumasi, or Cape Coast.
Yeah, Eric, I think that we are open to support any other MP or maybe institution that need our support, because as I'm talking to you, I'm struggling with the internet because I'm out of Accra.
Okay.
I'm doing a school building for multimedia to donate to a community, GSS structure. And I'm willing to also support any MP that feels that they are losing back in project development in their constituency. Just let me know, because this technology is cheaper, it's faster, it's earthquake resistance, it's fireproof. And we will be willing to help you, because look, we are there for humanity. So it's not like any institution that wants, even the university that wants hostels. We are still talking to other international funding agencies that are willing to bring money into the country to come and fund some of these projects under the control of government, which is SIF. Because given that institution, you cannot just get an increased rent or increase accommodation at any time. So I tell you, I'm willing. Let these institutions just get contact with me. The MPs, I'm willing to support them. Both parties, I'm not a political person, I've never been into politics, but anybody which is willing to come, we are willing to help them. Any institution, even TVXYZ that wants to do social corporate projects, we are willing to support them with the hydrophone technology, for them to know how beneficial it is, how effective it is, how cheaper, stronger it is to build with it. Look at the structure that I showed you. It was at that time costing almost about $3 million, and that structure had a moratorium of almost about 1 year, employ drivers, cleaners, what have you, pay them well. I showed you the documentation, and we could do far with it. So
I will find time to bring you to the studio so that we can have this conversation better. But let me go to Christopher. Christopher, I noticed somebody attempted to jam your phone. I know you are back. Christopher, you are lucky, because some will say your chancellor, they call him in Kumasi or take a course, so he may have money, he may have influence. Corporate bodies in the Ashanti region may be willing to help because of his influence. How engaging have they been in NUST's history as far as accommodation is concerned? If you can do this in a minute, because I'm wrapping up.
Hello. Please, can you come again with the question?
The question is, you are in Kumasi, the Asantehene is very influential. We know corporate bodies respect his call. I'm asking, what has been the involvement of corporate organizations as far as some of these challenges are concerned on campus? If you can do it under 1 minute, 2 minutes, I'll be grateful.
No, please, you are still not audible, please.
I'll say it last. I'm saying, how are corporate organizations responding to, let's say, Otumfuo's call, for example, to support NUST? If you can share some experience with us.
Hello, good evening.
Unfortunately, Christopher, we may have to end it here because our time is up. There's the last person from the University of Cape Coast. If he's on the line, let me wrap up with him and then come to Hamza to finish it. Can you hear me, University of Cape Coast?
Yes, Eric, I can hear you.
Right. So the question was, I know University of Cape Coast, your chancellor is also very, very influential. Is that Sam Jonah still?
Yes, Sam Jonah.
Right. So how influential has he been lobbying corporate bodies, for example, to see some critical challenges facing the University of Ghana and are willing to help or may have helped already?
So with regards to him, I think for some time now he has been putting in place contact to corporate bodies, and I think mostly during graduation matriculation he always updates university community on some of the engagements that he has made together with the chairman of council, the vice chancellor. But you know, these things require huge funding, and so it has always been an issue of the companies that have the bags of money. But also, he also made us to understand that sometimes the BOT, some of them look at from where we find ourselves, the coast, the rent, they feel that the amount that is being charged is relatively low. And so sometimes some of them think that it will take very long time to recoup their monies. And so it's become the challenge with some of the investors willing to come in. But I think he has been making huge contact as far as this issue is concerned and bent on getting a result.
All right. Thank you very much. Is that Latif Lawrence Jowi? I don't know if the pronunciation, Johowi, SRC President, University of Cape Coast. We are so grateful for your time. Now, is it Chinrihese or
Madam Mary Chinrihese?
Yes, she's your chancellor.
The adorable chancellor of the University of Ghana.
When she was a member of the Council of State during President Kufuor's regime, she was one of the respected ladies, and she still has that influence.
Very respected.
Now, if you became an SRC executive, president, anybody, what differently do you think should be informing the consideration of your team as somebody who has seen some of the things we have spoken about?
Thank you very much once again. That is why I have named my agenda as a redefined focus. The focus of the SRC.
You have just 2 minutes.
Thank you. I'll be very
because I'm taking advantage to hear your mind as a student who is thinking outside the box.
As a student leader, like my brothers espouse with the great ideas that they just churn out, I think we will give room or we'll give space to have a conversation with them. But one thing that I am very keen on is the fact that University of Ghana has a very large alumni, and some of them occupy the salient positions across the banking institution across the world. So if you are able to sit down with them, negotiate, the BOT can come into play, build, operate, and transfer. And I know even after building, operating, and transferring, I will not be there, but the generation that are coming will come and reap the positive effect of it. So I'll end by saying that thank you very much for this colossal opportunity. I know TV XYZ transcends beyond the borders of Ghana, and everyone is listening to us. Once again, this is Hamza Kwame Sahadu, and Hamza. It is a redefined focus. Your voice is my action.
Thank you.
I am not promising you heaven, but I believe together with you, we can take a voyage to the land of uncommon transformation. Aluta, continua, Victoria Aseta.
This is a typical Commonwealth Hall student. When I was at UCC, I was at the university, I was at Casford Hall. My younger brother, who is in the US now, was the president of Commonwealth Hall. So I understand politics of students at the University of Cape Coast. He is at that time was Godfred Ahianyo. So if you go, you can check from your records.
Let me give them a very big shout out. They will pawn me.
Okay. I understand. Okay.
I am sorry. A very good evening to the traditional outfits and Commonwealth Hall and every vandal. Yeah, I really want to use this opportunity to express my heartfelt gratitude for the support that you people have been rendering to me. And like they said, vandalism is not a pathological manifestation of the inner deterioration, but it is the express of indomitable passion for truth, both in thought and in action. And it is therefore highly presumptuous for anyone to try to cancel its prescriptions. And again, vandalism is an avenue for intellectual orgasm and not distraction.
Thank you.
Father Bakus persists to be our guide.
Sharp. So that's how I want to wrap up on this conversation. But the reality is that it's a crisis that can turn upside down all the noise we are making about education. You go to basic school, secondary school free, you go to tertiary, you can't afford, you can't concentrate, you can't even save money to buy food. Women may be reduced to people who are being used by exploiters who only want to give them freebies, to give them accommodation, and they turn everything around. I think government, the private sector, university authorities, banks must look into the opportunities that can help recoup their money and solve this problem once and for all. My name is Ahianyo. I'll see you again next week.